Hello and welcome to The Promised Land, a show about Manchester United and part of the 90 Min Podcast Network. We're back. Sorry, I've been away. Rob, how are you doing?
Not bad, Scott. Welcome back to the Manchester United universe and tons to talk about as usual.
Yes, tons indeed. Man United, finally. I was coming into this episode thinking that Man United currently are not the biggest talking point in football, which is quite nice. Although,
Who is Scott?
What's that?
Who is the
Well, it's been
point
Arteta over the last few days, hasn't it? And now it's Ange Postecoglou's Tottenham, mighty Tottenham, who've been turned over by the manager that they used to love 4-1 on their own patch by defending as a straight back 9 or back 8 plus, or back 7 plus 1, sorry. Anyway.
Scott doesn't like Spurs people.
I don't mind. I quite like Spurs. I think they're quite refreshing, but I just feel like the love-in is a little bit too much currently. Anyway, I'm Scott, joined by Rob. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and watch us on YouTube, The Promised Land of Manchester United podcast, because we will talk about Manchester United today. Like the video, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit the notification bell. Follow us on socials as well, at @_Scott Saunders, at @Rob_B, and at Promised Land MU for the show. Now, Man United have won a game. They play another one on Wednesday against Copenhagen in the Champions League. And this one is a potential tricky banana skin. We're not going to look ahead too much to that, but talk a little bit more generally today about, well, we've looked at Tottenham and how much praise they've got for trying their damnedest last night. And why isn't that happening at Man United? I know Rob wanted to talk about Marcus Rashford. I'd like to talk a little bit about Harry Maguire. But I guess the overall context of today's show is going to be about the levels of application that the players are putting in. Is that fair to say, Rob?
Yeah, I think it is fair to say, because when things go bad, Scott, that's the first thing you kind of look towards, isn't it? Is like, are the players putting in a shift? When things go well for a manager, like you just talked about Spurs recently here, and Postecoglou, a coach that I've criticised in the past and said I'm not sure he's got the tactics to be a Premier League manager. What we do know about Spurs is that they have been riding high, and that their manager and that the players are playing for this new manager. And of course, that's the new manager bounce, isn't it? That's what we talk about a lot. But I think what we're seeing at Man United, and I don't want to drag the conversation down, like we have just won a football match, but again, there's things to kind of talk through on that, is what's going on behind the scenes with some of these players, because there is I think, a fractured personality of this team. And we have to kind of work out, Scott, whether this is the players or whether this is the manager or whether it's a little bit of both. So there's still problems there. You win the game 1-0 at Fulham, and that's good, but you only win it in the last minute, the last kick of the game. Obviously, another moment for Manchester United. But there are things to assess, I think, and we need to dig deeper on it.
Yeah, we'll talk about Marcus Rashford a little bit. Been in the news over the last couple of days. Talk a little bit about Harry Maguire as well, because I think Harry Maguire, as much criticism as Harry Maguire has had, is probably the best example that we're seeing in this team currently of somebody who has been criticised, had a lot of negativity around him, been out of the team, lost the armband, that is now reacting in the right way. And if everybody was reacting like him, then maybe there's a few, like you can count on a few fingers or one hand or whatever, how many people are reacting like him, instead of throwing your toys out of the pram, sulking, strolling round, flailing your arms, this kind of thing. This always happens. I think this is the important thing to point out here. This always happens. This has happened under Solskjaer. This happened under Mourinho. This happened under, not so much Van Gaal, I don't think, but Ralph Rangnick is another one. So you mentioned there, Rob, is it the players? Is it the manager? I'm firmly in the camp of it's the players to me. And I always have been. That's why I've always been reticent to say that Ten Hag should be sacked. Because I feel like United go through a cycle over and over again of the players letting down whoever's managing them. All Ten Hag has come out and said every single time is he wants full effort and full commitment to the cause. And we see in Tottenham that, they lost 4-1 to Chelsea. Could have shipped 10, to be honest, the way that they played. but everything's positive because they tried. So, yeah, let's start with Rashford, Rob, shall we? So, what did you want to say on Rashford at the moment? Because obviously, there's been the party after the derby.
Yeah.
There's been he was dropped or injured for the Fulham game, this kind of thing, and he didn't play against Newcastle, right? Didn't play against Newcastle either. That was damaging as well. The players looked. We haven't done a show since then. That was pathetic, really. It was. But you look at Newcastle United, a team who are they should be nowhere near as good as Man United. They run and run and run really hard.
And injuries galore.
They run really hard and they try.
Yeah.
All Eric Ten Hag has ever asked for is we have to do this we have to apply ourselves in every game. No matter what game it is, we have to give our maximum. We have to. And he demands a lot of energy and a lot of commitment from the players. And now the players turn around and like, no, I don't fancy running for you because I don't like your ideas or I don't like how you treated my mate. Anyway, you go for it, Rob.
That was a good little bit there about how you treat my mate, because that's like every office place, isn't it, in the world, is that if the staff don't get on with the management, then that's how it feels, is that kind of feeling. I'll start with it like this. Every training ground, Scott, this is the long-winded version for our audience, is a microclimate. Yeah. So you think every training ground should be the same, like you just said there about manager Eric Ten Hag demanding effort and energy. Don't know any manager that doesn't demand that of their squad. Like, there's no manager in the Premier League that goes, yeah, don't give me effort or energy. That is a prerequisite. Come into work, do your job. This is the difference, Scott, between being a footballer and a professional footballer. The word being professional, that's your job, isn't it? You don't you don't operate on vibes and just come in and kick a football. That is not your job. I want to talk about Marcus because we haven't done a show since Newcastle, and obviously he didn't play in the last game. And Ten Hag gave his reasons for that, saying that he was a late fitness test. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm really disappointed in Marcus Rashford. Right? Marcus Rashford is a Manchester United boy. He's like us. He's a fan. He supported the club his whole life. He absolutely knows what it takes to play for this team. Sometimes I think you hear it with the wider fan base, especially the global fan base, where we talk about maybe English players and they feel that we're a little bit kinder on English players because they are one of our own, and we identify more with them. Well, I certainly don't think like that as an individual. But I look at Marcus, and I've always been very proud of him, both the stuff that he's done off the pitch and on the pitch. Last season, Manchester United do not get top 4 or win a trophy without Marcus Rashford. Not at all. Best form of his life, earned that new deal, got that contract, was in Ballon d'Or conversations, etc.
No, look, Rob, he wasn't.
But look, he wasn't going to get.
We've had this conversation before. That was elevated to the point. We scored a lot of goals. Yeah, nowhere near. I'm sorry, nowhere near.
He's not in that top 5. Of course not. Of course he's
not even 10.
But the point is that he carried Man United in terms of putting the ball in the net last year. That's why you get talked about. If you do anything good at Man United, Scott, you get talked in these glowing terms. That's what it is. That's the way it's always been going back over the years. But I think with Marcus and with this and losing to Manchester City in the way that they did, is that he absolutely knows, he has his fingers there on his pulse of how people feel about Man United footballers and what they do, yeah, especially after defeats and what we need to see and what we want to see. He completely knows that having a party or doing that, like I've always said this before, footballers do have birthdays, they do have social lives. Yeah, of course they can still have those. You're still allowed to go out and be a human being. But maybe after a defeat like that, don't do it. Don't do it because it's not on. Roll forward a day or two, and obviously Eric Ten Hag was put that to him in the presser, and Eric Ten Hag made it completely crystal clear what he thought. And he said that it was kind of out of order, that it's completely unacceptable, those were the words, and that it was an internal matter. Now, as soon as the manager says that, you know that there's more there. You can kind of smell it, the deeper. Now, obviously, the next game, he missed that. He was allegedly injured. That was what the manager told us. And I use the word alleged because Marcus sat there with a big, dirty face on, looking very upset. They're on the bench. And that was that. Now, I'm disappointed in Marcus for that because I think in this moment when Eric Ten Hag needs him and Manchester United needs him and the Man United fans need him, Scott, we need something more. Do you think that's fair? I don't know. Outwardly as well. Like, it wasn't like Marcus was injured and he was like, right, let's go, lads. And it wasn't. He just sat there, hat down, hood on, didn't move for 90 minutes, clearly not happy. I said on Twitter during that period, I said, as much as we criticise Eric Ten Hag, and we have done on this show, and we will continue to do that when we see stuff that we're not happy about, is that you need to stick with Eric Ten Hag at the moment. And you just said there, is it players, is it manager? We've seen this cycle before. The microclimate at training grounds is that emotions do go up and down. You know, a year ago, they might have liked Ten Hag a little bit more than they like him now. But one thing that can't go up and down, Scott, is your performances and your effort. You can't. Doesn't matter. Like, you're on big money. You're playing for the biggest football club in the world. And for some of them, like Marcus, it's the team that he loves. So show that you love that club. So we've seen the fallout now, obviously, with his tweet to a fan channel recently, and that's taken over the news. I think that I have sympathy for Marcus with some of that, but I think some of that is absolute nonsense and players shouldn't have to deal with it. But we need to see more from Marcus Rashford, Scott. Like, people might be watching this now. He might be back in the team for Copenhagen. He might score a hat-trick and everyone's happy again. But I've not been happy with his performances since he put his name on that contract, because since he signed that contract, he has been poor.
But I think this is obviously yes, I've already said, and I'll say it again. I'll say it on the podcast. I, at this point, would much prefer that every player in this football club left before the manager.
Mm-hmm.
I would, that is my position on it at the moment, because this will continue to happen over and over and over again. The manager should be the most important person, and he should be getting exactly what he wants out of every single player. And if one player is like, can't be bothered, that reflects on another player and another player and another player, and it undermines the manager. We've seen it now. We've seen it with Rangnick. We've seen it with Ollie. We've seen it with Mourinho. All of these people. And yeah, you can say whatever about Mourinho, he was too harsh, this kind of thing. Yeah, probably was. But this is a trend that has happened year after year after year after year for 10 years, like, consistently. So I've said numerous times, this monotonous cycle needs to end. And that is why Eric Ten Hag is in this position now. I've seen him play football, which is really good, with players that are that Ajax team now. You know, it was broken up a little bit. Some players arguably better than the players in the United team, but a lot of them aren't. You know,
Dusan Tadic couldn't do it at Southampton.
Exactly. But they managed to do it in the Champions League for a while.
Yeah.
They played some of the best football that, you know, I remember seeing in recent years. Ajax now are crumbling since Ten Hag has left. It's not only him. There's Van der Sar, Overmars, this kind of thing as well. But that's proven to me that he can do. I know he said that never quote about, like, I will never play like Ajax because I don't have the right players. I think that's probably that's something that's symptomatic of the players that he has available, because they won't try hard enough. I actually think that I think that was a pointed message to his players. And that's why I'll say all of these players now need to be put in their place, and Marcus Rashford's included in that. And so the players must take blame. The club must also take blame, because there is no reason, no way in hell Marcus Rashford should be earning £350,000 a week. I'm sorry. Like, I come back to the contracts all the time. They inflate their contracts, and then you get this mess that's happening on the pitch over and over again. The wage structure is off completely. And I hope that when Paul Mitchell and Jim Ratcliffe come in, that they recognize that straight away and think, I know United drive as much revenue as probably most clubs in the world, and that's fair. But if it's going to... People come to United for a payday. That's been the case for a long time.
Yeah.
At Liverpool, they incentivize contracts. That's why Liverpool's, you know, they have Klopp as well. But everything ties together. United undermine the manager time and time again because they pay the players so much money, and they can turn up, get a payday for 5 years, and be like, oh, well, I'm fine now. I don't have to try. I think that's the way I see it.
Yeah, look, I'm with you on some of that. I look at it like this. We're just talking about Marcus Rashford and what's going on here. Do we think Marcus Rashford plays for Man United just because of the money? That's a question to you.
I don't think it is just because of that. But I think there are players in the past that have done that.
Yeah.
And I feel like United's level, they are not a consistent Champions League club. They should not be paying the best wages in the world to anybody.
No.
They are not a consistent Champions League club.
That's why I call it a microclimate, because it's we think of it as huge, don't we? Like, we look back over 10 years and we can point towards the Glazers and stuff that's happened at the football club. And you're absolutely right. United have severed their own wage structure because they're a commercial business, Scott, and they look at a Marcus Rashford as an asset in that terms of selling shirts, selling sponsorships, and that's why players at Man United get paid the big dollars. They get Casemiro, they pay him a lot of money because they're looking at going into a territory in South America and selling more shirts. That's the way they look at it. Brazilian players sell loads of shirts in the Far East, so they're looking at that again. They're going, well, this is why we can pay these players the money. Well, maybe pay them for scoring goals and winning you games. Maybe that's the way you have to go with it. But we there's no point wishing for that. If the Glazers are running it, like, there's no point. It's like we're just shouting into the void and into the abyss. What we can do, Scott, is analyze the microclimate and why are players gravitating one moment to a manager and they're not. So this is where the balance comes, because I'm with you with the fact that it's on the players, a lot of this. And we know that Ten Hag can play good football, and we've seen it before. The problem is that managers, when they get sacked or something fails, it's not normally about whether they can do the job or not. It's about if they are doing the job, if what we're seeing is working. You mentioned Spurs there, and I will sing some of Spurs' praises. Those players are running through fires for their manager. Now, Postecoglou, I think, does have tactical problems, and we are seeing that. We saw that against Chelsea, definitely. You know, there are things there. But the first prerequisite, Scott, is that if that badge is on your chest, whoever you play for, it doesn't have to be Man United. You can go and play for Torquay United, yeah? But you have to run for the team and run for your teammates and run for the manager and run for those fans. That's the bit that's getting me, is that we're still seeing this imbalance. You want to talk about Harry Maguire? Let's talk about Harry Maguire. Harry Maguire has had the hardest time of any Man United footballer, I think, in the last 2, 3, 4 years. Yeah. And he's rightfully got it sometimes. Like, he's been poor and he's been dropped. He's had the captaincy ripped off him. He's had United fans attack him left, right, and centre. Go to West Ham. Don't have your 10 million quid, Harry, that we owe you. Just get out the football club. And here he is, putting his body on the line. And as I described it the other day on Twitter, playing like a captain. Because he is. That's the truth. He's still not the best centre-back in the world, but he's playing for a manager that has dropped him. Do you know why, Scott? Because he is a professional, in inverted commas. That's his job, and he's doing his job. And that's all we ask for, Scott. I think the problem is that there's a lot of players at Man United. It doesn't matter whether you're on big wages or small wages. It's what you do in that microclimate. You turn up for training, and do you really mean it? Are you just turning up for a day and going home and playing on your PlayStation, or going to Gucci and doing some shopping? Or are you a professional? Man United need to find some professionals, Scott. That's what it comes down to. And it doesn't. And then I'm not sure if it is about wages. Like, I don't know if someone.
It's not, maybe not purely, but it
not
plays
purely.
A part. I don't care what anybody says. It does.
United have got the wage structure wrong. You're right. There is a correlation there between misperforming and wages. And the problem at Man United is that we are a super huge club, and the super huge clubs will always pay top whack because that's how it is. And I think Ten Hag would like to build something more organic from the ground up. But then I think we can look at some of his signings in the last 12 months. Some have been good, some have not been so good. The impact, we can talk about Mason Mount. You bought Mason Mount for 60 million quid. You're not using him. Well, how do you want to use him? You bought a new goalkeeper. You want to play out from the back, Scott, but no one knows how to play out from the back. There's a lot of things that I think we can still talk about with Eric Ten Hag that are valid, that are not just, well, let's sack every United footballer off and stick with the manager. That's the problem. That's the balance for me, is that I do back Eric Ten Hag 100%. I really do. And I think that any player that doesn't want to play for him, whether it's Marcus Rashford or someone lower in the food chain, is that you show them the door. If Jadon Sancho doesn't want to play for the manager, you show him the door. Harry Maguire got told he wasn't wanted anymore. Do you know what, Scott? Sell him. Pay him and sell him. Do it to Scott McTominay as well. So we now have a fractured microclimate at Man United. And I think that's the club. I think that's the ownership. I think they've created that. I don't know if Ten Hag is also helping those things. I don't. I think that he's a conservative. He likes to play the baseline. I don't think it's different to any other coach asking his players to run. Every manager asks their players to run. Like, because you can't win games if you don't run. So I think there are wider conversations.
Why do the players at other clubs listen to the manager? Like, is that because of the manager, or is that because of the club atmosphere that we've proven over and over again is rotten?
Both. I think the foundations are the problem at Man United, is how it's set up, as you said. Like, I again tweeted that footballers know that high earners at a football club, in terms of football, they will prevail longer than a manager. Everyone knows that at the top of the game. Most people look at it that way. Even unless you're Klopp or unless you're Guardiola, you will generally look at a manager if you don't like him and say, well, I'll stick it out for a year and we'll see what happens, and I'll take my wage home. But the problem with that is, Scott, is that if you've got too many like that, then that's a problem with your recruitment. It's that you're not finding ways to bring in players that will do stuff for you. I think Ten Hag has been trying to create that at Man United and hasn't had the support from the board to create a playing staff that does that for you. But we can't just say, when we're looking at the tactics, that everything is just about player effort. It isn't. There are tactical things not happening. A press is also about effort and also about training and about getting your players in the right shape. Man United don't look fit. Why is that? Is that mistraining? I said last week they don't look prepared. And I put it on coaches, because coaches have to prepare footballers in a professional capacity.
You see Marcel Sabitz's interview yesterday?
No. What? Go for it.
Keep talking. I'll dig it up.
And I think this is the bigger question about individuals. You can even go back, Scott, to like the Paul Pogba days, and people would say, "Oh, Paul Pogba is this, that, or the other," and people would always talk about the things that he wasn't rather than the things that he was, and you'd get this imbalance of opinion. And I think we're seeing it now at the football club on both sides of it. Is that I think Marcus, after this incident here with the party and then not playing in the last game, I think he's been given a relatively easy time by the wider press and by a lot of United fans. But I also know there's a lot of United fans that are really disappointed. I'm definitely one of them. So what did Marcus Sabitzer say then? Because obviously he's got a little bit of insight, hasn't he?
Marcel Sabitzer said, Ten Hag comes up with very specific match plans and patterns of play. Or this is what he said. But if you have too many important players missing, too many changes as a result, things get lost between the tactics board and the pitch. And then he goes on to say, or the article says from The Athletic, this is, Sabitzer enjoyed working with Ten Hag, a man obsessed with details.
Yes.
In quotes. You can wake him up at 3 a.m. He'd tell you his whole match plan by heart. He's very knowledgeable about football and tactics, a very hard worker, a perfectionist. He's very straight with you. When I had a bad game, he showed me some situations and told me how to do better next time. I like that. You knew where you stood with him. He never threw you under the bus. Instead, he told players to go out and do better in the next game. I learned a lot about football working under him, and he's a very good coach. Mm-hmm. Now, that was 4 months ago that you started working with him.
Mm.
So is he wrong then?
No, not at all. And I think that's why I've always, in general, supported Erik Ten Hag in those things, because I think that as a head of a business, of the football team at Man United, as the head coach, I like his profile of manager in that he is technical, he is tactical, but all of that, Scott, doesn't matter if you don't get performances. You have to find ways to get performances, to get victories. And I think, we've talked about the injuries a lot this year. And I do think that when you haven't got players in your team or haven't got availability, that of course that's going to affect you, because you've got your best laid plans for your first 11, haven't you? I think the problem with Man United and the problem with Ten Hag is that you can't always just get by having one plan. And you see it at other football clubs, so you have to diversify.
Apparently you can. Like, Postecoglou's getting praised to the hilt for having one plan.
Yeah, but do you know what, Scott? We can joke about it and be sarcastic about it, but we do know, and we've already said this, that if it doesn't work in 6 months, then Postecoglou's gone. So it's kind of like,
which is exactly why when people look at Postecoglou's Tottenham after 10, 11 games and then say, why can't Ten Hag do this? It's different circumstances. Talk about it at 18 months.
It's different circumstances, but if we dial it back, it is just a sport. It is just football. It's about psychology. How do you make players run through fires for you into brick walls? Like, it's an art. Like, some managers are great at it. You look back at Man United history, and some of our older viewers will look at this and maybe understand this more than others. But you can look back at someone like Dave Sexton in the 80s, who was a very technical, tactical coach and played absolutely bland, boring football, and the players didn't like it, and he left the football club. Or you could look at someone like Tommy Docherty, who was a flair manager and got players to run. They got relegated, but they came straight back Cup and people loved Tommy Docherty. So this is the difference. Like Ron Atkinson, another flair type of manager. Then Fergie comes in and Fergie dials it all down to more detail. So Fergie's successful, but takes him 4 years. And we absolutely know that is not going to happen for Erik Ten Hag. He has not got 4 years. He hasn't got 4 minutes, Scott. So the microclimates at football clubs have to be so acute that you get everyone on the same page somehow. We know the Jadon Sancho issue going back over the time has affected some of the camp. We know there are individuals there that don't like it. And you know what? There's other individuals, Scott, that won't care because it's just that's work at the end of the day. I don't think Harry Maguire comes in and is particularly bothered about what's happening with other players. He's trying to do his job and get back in the team, isn't he? And, you know, clapping the former captain for putting in captain's displays. But this is the balance. We can look at the longer history of Man United and what the Glazers have done, and they have wrecked this football club in terms of the way that there's any chemistry here with players and managers. And that's why they sack managers. And they will be looking at the Postecoglou's going, oh, he's got a tune. Maybe we'll sack this manager and go and try and get another conductor of the band. That's the problem, isn't it? Because you keep doing that and that doesn't work. But every football club tends to kind of do that. You don't stick with the manager if the team is misperforming for whatever reason. So this is the balance here now, is that we've got Copenhagen coming up, Scott. If you lose to Copenhagen, you're out the Champions League effectively, yeah? Like, you're done. It's finished. And that was a big objective this year, was to do well in the Champions League. And the manager totally knows that he's got to get a victory in that game somehow. You beat Fulham 1-0, Scott, but it was still a very up and down game. Like, it really was. Like, you didn't see maybe the wider performances you needed. Aaron Wan-Bissaka came back, Scott. I was just like that. Like, he put in a shift and you're like, oh, thank God. And you want to see these players come back that put in a shift. But that's got to be the first port of call, isn't it? That they just try and that they put that effort in. They don't make silly mistakes over and over again. Because to me, that is also about training, is that the manager has to get across his detail, Scott. He can have the biggest plan in the world, but you've got to communicate that to your players. The players have to absolutely know everything that you want them to do.
Has just said that he does. Like,
well, for Marcel, because Marcel Sabitzer, I think,
as Ten Hag just rewound the way that he manages in 3 months.
No, but then what you're saying, Scott, is you're saying that a manager is like this and a player is like that, and that line to manager and player is perfect, and it isn't, because it never is in any workplace. Is that you have the same standards for everyone, for all the squad. But ultimately, you have to deal with people individually and get the most out of them. And some people you have to love, and some people you have to properly dig out and get hard on. And I'm sure Erik Ten Hag does do that. But it's not a perfect circle. And that's how I described it the other day when I wrote about it. I said, it's not like people think that you just have one standard and the players have to conform. It doesn't work like that. Marcel Sabitzer likes it. But do you know what? The manager went, I'm not going to sign you. Off you go, mate. You don't fit what I want you to do.
Could you just say that again about the perfect circle?
I just said there's that it's not like training players and having the standard is not a perfect circle. It's like people think it starts here and you do that and everyone comes on the ride with you to the end, and the end is winning.
But every successful club, that's how they run. Like,
right, we've said Klopp,
Klopp and Guardiola have the control that they have because they have players who are on board with what they're doing, and if they don't like it, they ain't in it. Calvin Phillips, who was signed for 50 million quid, has made about 3 appearances for them.
Who's that? Sorry,
Calvin Phillips.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't really hear a word about it because Pep's right.
Pep is right. And because those two football clubs uniquely have built their projects over several years, that's how you should do it. Man United used to do it like that, Scott. But we are not one of those clubs. Most clubs...
How do you get to that point, Rob?
How do you get to that point? Well, it starts in the boardroom at the very top, right? And we've had this conversation.
There's a reason why Jim Ratcliffe wants to bring Paul Mitchell in straight away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you have to fix the foundations of the building before you start putting more bricks on and a roof. You just have to do that. And the manager doesn't come at the foundation stage. It doesn't. The manager actually comes somewhere higher up the building. Like, he's more like the roof that stops the rain falling in every week. So I think the thing is, and analogies aside, is that you can have the standard and the idealism, but the truth is that 12 managers in the Premier League will get sacked this year. Not because those 12 managers are absolutely garbage coaches, Scott. It's because unless you can translate stuff into results, then you will probably lose your job. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. That goes round in circles. Guardiola won't get sacked. Klopp won't get sacked because they've invented something and a standard. And I called it a bulletproof culture. Those managers have bulletproof cultures. I don't know if Eric Ten Hag has got that yet because I've not seen enough.
Do
Fergie,
you not think he's trying to install that?
of course he's
Like
trying.
Alex Ferguson had 5 years ish till he turned it
Exactly.
around because he was given the time to correct something that was fundamentally wrong. Fundamentally wrong.
And one
Ten
of the
Hag
things,
has walked into a club that came off the back of their worst ever Premier League season.
yeah, he
Ralph
did.
Rangnick called it out in the press, in the public, that this
Ralph was right.
place needs open heart surgery, and now we're pretending again that it's the manager's fault. Like, I'm sorry,
No, we're not pretending
like...
that at all. It's not the manager's fault. Like, why are you saying that? We're not pretending it's the manager's fault. We're backing the manager. I believe in Eric Ten Hag. I want Eric Ten Hag to stay, and I've literally just said, and so have you, get rid of the players that don't fit him, right? Because you stick with that. But the truth of the matter is that him managing everyone, he can't just say to everyone the same thing because you have different personalities. You have to be able to balance the books. You have to. So he has to find different ways to get performances out of players. And if you don't get a performances, Scott, you lose games. And if you lose games, you lose your job. That's just the way it works. Fergie had 4 years of it. And Fergie will say this, he looked at the culture at Man United of the players, and you had Brian Robson, you had a massive drinking culture, and you had all these players going out all the time, and it took him years to work that out. And the only reason they stuck with him is that you were coming from a very relatively low bar. Like United were terrible, on that rise back up where Fergie was, and they came 12th, 13th, like in 3 or 4 seasons in that, and 1 season where they came second. But that is not the reality of football in the modern day. We don't run clubs like that anymore. If you have a bad 6 or 7 games, people are talking about
came 8th twice.
Exactly. Well, they stuck with
this is what I'm saying. Stop the cycle.
They stuck with Arteta.
Give him the time, because the only way that you'll get out of this cycle, unless you go and, like, fair enough, if Jim Ratcliffe wants to come in and Paul Mitchell want to come in and they want to do things right and they want to change the manager, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
fine. And they might do.
I've got no issue with that.
Yeah.
But the way that it stands at the moment, they need to get behind. We all know that there's a rotten culture here. Fix that first. Definitely. Fix that first. This ain't the manager to me. He's trying his damnedest, and he said recently, didn't he, that installing discipline was one of the things that he was brought in to do.
Yeah.
And now he tries to install a bit of discipline. It's like, oh, well, I don't like the discipline.
Yeah.
Like,
but that is
how was anybody else going to succeed?
I don't think that is. Sorry, go on.
How is anybody else going to succeed if we get to this phase again and we think, oh, well, I've seen this before, let's sack him again. Let's get somebody else in 18 months. You'd be like, oh, well, I've seen this before, let's sack him as well.
Yes, and like I don't think that that's a uniquely football thing. I think is that when you're a manager or a boss, or you've ever managed any people, is that you know that you want to push the ship all in the same way, and you stay consistent with that, and you do your damnedest every morning. You go into work and you push that, and you push the agenda that you want the highest standard possible. But there will be part of your team that is weak for whatever reason. You could be physical health, mental health. Some players go through other stuff. Some are a little bit more touchy. Some you need to really drag by the kind of the coattails and say you've got to do this, and that's the balance in the act. And I think last year is that he got that balance right in that season, and that, as you said, he came into a rotten football club, and he's even said there was no standards before I got here. Like, he said that publicly, Eric Ten Hag, and I believe him. I agree with that. That's how we all felt.
It's still the case, by the way.
It is still the case, and you've had lots of injuries, and that's something he can lean on, and he can say, I've had injuries, and he can tell the board that, he can tell his bosses that. But when the bosses upstairs get a sniff that things are not right on the training ground, and that players are now disaffected, they look at them as their assets. They don't look at managers as assets. And that is what's wrong with Man United, is that Arteta got the time at Arsenal. But you know what, Scott? If Arsenal came 7th or 8th this year, they ain't sticking with Arteta. They'll sack him. Yeah, it's just the truth.
But they came 8th twice. But then fixed it,
because they were in a spell where they were so bad for like 8-9 years that they tried to break the spell. But that was also with the change of ownership, wasn't it? They went from the Kroenke base to something completely different. So they went with the Edu kind of faction of how
the same owners are still there. They just put the fundamentals in place.
Exactly,
which is what they're trying to do now.
Which is kind of what United are hopefully going to do, is that if the Glazers remain in any capacity, is that they don't make football decisions. Like, just go away and leave the football club alone. So it's a more expansive conversation, I think, than just football. But I think with Eric Ten Hag, it will be just based on results. Like, we cannot get away from that, is that you cannot come 12th and expect to keep your job. Like you said the other week,
But they
that's what
should have.
United
Like,
need.
my point is that Arteta has just proven
Yeah.
that if you ride through that wave and do things right and stick to your guns, things will improve. Because look at Arsenal, they fixed it.
Yeah.
So how do United fix it? By sacking another guy?
Well, they fixed it for now. But like I said, in 6 months' time, if results disappear or the players suddenly don't like what Arteta is doing for whatever reason, and that's the way you go, is that the manager will get sacked and the players will end up staying. So
that's
like,
not going to happen, though, is it?
I don't know. Like I've seen enough in football, Scott, to not be shocked by anything. I really have. I've seen it all. Every football club, you see it repeatedly. It goes around in circles, some of that stuff. So this is the whole thing, is that, you know, we were only talking a year ago that maybe it was the end of Jurgen Klopp's time at Liverpool because players were disaffected. They didn't want to do the press. They didn't want to run like they were before. So he sorted that out because he's got sway with people upstairs. Well done, Jurgen Klopp. Liverpool are back to a better standard again, aren't they? And you should believe in managers that have built up that acumen over many years. I think there's a difference there. Arsenal are doing that with Arteta at the moment. But I think with Erik Ten Hag, he's still in the infancy of his tenure at Man United. And 18 months is not really a long time in football. But when you've gone from being one thing, I don't know, 12 months ago, and you're kind of fixing things, and then those players go, hang on a second, we've hit a brick wall here, boss, and we can't work it out. You can have all the plans in the world, Scott, but if you're losing games and players are not running for you and you can't put a basic press on, there's something wrong there. You have to work with it as you go along. So I'm all for keeping Ten Hag.
I really don't understand what we're saying. I don't get it.
Because your viewpoint on it is that you just stick with the manager through thick and thin, and I'm with you. I want that.
No, but you're saying if the manager doesn't get results, then just sack him and we'll start again.
No, I'm saying he will be sacked. I'm not saying just sack him. I'm not. Please don't take what I'm saying wrong. I'm saying that if he loses games, the board will sack him. That's it. That's just the truth. I would like him to stay. You know, I'd have liked Ole to have got a little bit more time. I would have maybe liked Van Gaal to get a little bit more time. But I understand that when you hit a kind of a glass ceiling, you either burst through it and smash through to the next level, or you kind of go back down and start again. And I think that is football in a nutshell, is that's how boards run pretty much every football club across the land. There's only one or two that don't really work like that, and Man United definitely ain't one of them. We know that United are probably the worst. You know, we are the soap opera of global football, aren't we? But you know what, Real Madrid, Scott, you know, you get Lopetegui go to Real Madrid, he loses like 12 games at Real Madrid, they sack him. That's it. He's gone. Doesn't mean Lopetegui's a bad manager, does it? So, like, that's how it works. I think some of these super clubs, Man United, think they're one of them. But you need to build infrastructure and around a coach. But there will come a time when you'll lose faith in that if results do not carry on going on. I think he's made some tactical errors this year, and we can talk about those, and we have done. We'll continue to talk about them. I don't think he's blameless, but I don't think he's the first neck on the block for me, but he will be for the board, especially if Jim Ratcliffe comes in and goes, I've got a coach that I really like, and I think he could probably do this job better than this lad, and this bloke's losing games. Man United's worst ever start in how many years, Scott? Since 1960 something. You know, it's not a great look, is it? You can, if you've got a little cut, you can put plaster on it, but you can't take big gashes and wounds and just bandage them up. And I think with Ten Hag, he's done a little bit of that this season. You have to wait for his players to come back, the injured ones. Aaron Wan-Bissaka I thought was really good. Harry Maguire's giving you some value. But Marcus Rashford ain't doing it for you, Scott, and you pay him 350 grand a week, and he's a Manchester boy who loves Man United. Where do we go? Like, that's a question to you. What happens? What do you do if you're Erik Ten Hag right now and your plan ain't working? What do you do?
You need to say this again. Sorry. I mean, I don't understand.
Did you dial out? I just said, if you're Erik Ten Hag right now, you believe in your methods, you believe in yourself, right? And you're losing games and your players are not pressing for you and people are unhappy. What do you do? Like, I think you said last week, the definition of madness is carrying on doing the same thing over and over again. So does the manager carry on being Erik Ten Hag and doing the same thing over and over again because he prepares well, because he is an erudite manager, because he's about the detail?
But he has changed.
Do you find different ways?
He dropped him.
Yes, that's good.
The definition of doing, like, I was critical of Ten Hag for not dropping him early enough. He's been out for 2 games.
So what do you do in the next game? So, like, this is the thing. So, like, there's always a next game to come, and you've always got to find ways to win that football match.
First choice. If you bring him back in, and it works, great.
So, if you bring him back in, he doesn't run. What do you do the next week? Do you drop him then?
Back out.
Yeah, so I agree with that. That's exactly what I would do. Totally that. And the reason why managers don't do that is because they're scared. They don't want to lose their jobs. They don't want to say, I've got all these assets and I don't use them because I don't like them. They don't get on with me. That's hard for Eric Ten Hag.
We're looking at a team now, right, that Rafa Varane isn't playing in, Casemiro isn't playing in, Marcus Rashford isn't playing in.
And why not? Why are they not playing?
Because Ten Hag's trying to send a message, probably.
Yeah, and he's right. He's absolutely right. And he's putting his neck on the block. But this is the problem, is that they are three of your absolute senior players that you pay the highest wages to. And we like to talk about wages, again, in correlation to performances, don't we? We do it all the time because at Man United, we get bad performances and high wages. It's an easy subject to talk about. Eric Ten Hag has to find a way to win games. And if he's going to take those three out of the mix for whatever reason, because he's now not getting on with them or they're not doing what he wants them to do or they're not happy, you still got to win games. And that's the way the board will look at it. Now, Richard Arnold ain't no football expert.
Well,
he's going to just go
change within the next.
Well, there's fingers crossed, like we've got to still hope that these things get ratified and pushed through. And we know that's the way it's going. And I do feel better about that side of the business changing because I think that will help Eric Ten Hag. But I also will not be shocked, Scott, is that if he carries on losing games or performances are bad, is that any new faction coming in with Ratcliffe and any new management is the first thing that they will change is the manager. They will go, this is not working, so we can only change one bit, which is a manager. We're not changing 8 players because we can't afford that or we can't do that. And that's not reality. And it isn't in any workplace either. You don't sack the 8 staff that aren't working for you. You change the dynamic of the business, which normally comes at the very, very, very top. So I don't know. So this is the kind of thing where we differ on it. But I'm not saying that I want Eric Ten Hag sacked at all. No, stick with him. I think he's a really good coach. But the truth is, if you lose games, you will get sacked. That's just football. And Arsenal, as you said, did it. But again, Arsenal are not the blueprint of everything. They're just having the success they are now under Arteta. I think we should criticise Arteta for what he said the other day. Very entitled, over-the-top managerial comment of what he said the other day. Now, he can say that because he feels confident. Do you know what I mean? Because he's in that moment of it. But it's not like that across the board. And I see that with Ten Hag. I think he feels hesitant to maybe talk about the real problems going on in the squad.
Let us know what you think. I mean, that was a conversation that I'm not entirely sure what you're going to take out of that.
Opinions.
Yeah, it's just a opinion versus opinion there for today, which is a little bit different. But
we have the same opinion, Scott. I
know this is why I'm so confused. Yeah.
I'm trying to explain how I think it is, not how I feel. That's what I'm saying. I feel that you stick with the manager, but I'm telling you, this is what I think the football club is and how they will deal with stuff. Do you get what I mean? So that's why I'm disappointed in Marcus, because Marcus can put a shift in. That's the way I look at it. Is Marcus, when we see him play against Copenhagen or on, he's got to run more, Scott, isn't he? That is a prerequisite. And that's where this starts, with effort. And that's why Tottenham fans clapped their 9 players off the pitch last night, because they see the effort. That's a reflection of the fans. We aren't seeing that at Man United. That's a problem. That's a problem for the manager to deal with. And he has to find ways to make these boys run more.
He does.
Tell us what you all think.
Yeah, tell us what you think. I mean, I watch every Eric Ten Hag press conference. The message never changes.
Says the same thing. Yeah.
Says the same thing over and over again. So I can't imagine he's just telling the press that he wants his players to try hard and he's not saying it on the training pitch. So to me, you know where I stand on it. I hope anyway. This has been a bit of a I'm not sure, but yeah, that's it from us. We'll leave it there. So subscribe wherever you get your pods and watch us on YouTube as well. The Promised Land of Man United podcast. Like the video, leave a comment and subscribe. Hit the notification bell too. And at _Scott Saunders on X, Instagram and TikTok, at _Rob_B, and at Promised Land MU for the show as well. We'll be back later this week to talk about the Copenhagen game, and United play Luton at the weekend. If they can win those 2 games, things might turn around a little bit going into the international break, because there is another international break coming up from next week. So how exciting. Thanks for listening, everyone. Leave a comment on anything that we've talked about today. If you're watching on YouTube, get in touch with us on the social medias as well. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching or listening. Until next time.